Leadership is doing things that allow you to get the vectors pointing in the same direction, like doing tug of war. If half your team's pulling on the opposite side of the rope, then it's going to be way harder for you to move forward. And then the other one is the force they're pulling with.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Everything is Influence podcast. And we have an amazing guest today. As always, we're going to uncover the 4 levels of influence. How has this person become who they are? How do they see the process of influence? And how have they taken that? How have they transferred that to another human being in a sales process? How do they do that at level 3 to groups? And most importantly, how have they replaced themselves through people and process to instill their mission and values into other people to make sure what they do is legendary, that they create lasting change in the world? And few people have done it at the level of Dan Martell. He's somebody that's had a really big impact on my life. And a big part of his business is SaaS, which is all about process and systems. And so without any further ado, Mr. Dan Martell, how are you?
Eli, amazing, incredible. SaaS, for those listening that don't know, because I have to teach my best friends, software as a service. So I actually coach and help software entrepreneurs scale their businesses.
Awesome. So the SaaS company that most people know of, well, there's Salesforce, but ClickFunnels for a lot of this community, which is a SaaS. So everybody's already using this stuff. So let us know. Let's start off with.
Yeah, I actually coached the team there, Dave and Todd, not so much Russell, but more on the product engineering and kind of operational side. But yeah.
Well, that's a great place to start. So let everybody know, what do you do in the world? Like, what does your company do specifically?
3 things. Every day I wake up and I focus on 3 things. One is SaaS Academy, which is a way for me to teach everything I've ever learned about scaling and growing software companies, which I've been doing since I was 17. High Speed Ventures is like my family office. So that's where I I've invested in 50 plus companies, Intercom, Udemy, Hootsuite, GetAround. I've bought software companies through that entity. I've got a team there. Now we're doing a bunch of stuff in Web3. So we're incubating and building some Web3 projects. And then the other part is essentially it's called the Mandy Legacy Foundation, which is my at-risk youth nonprofit focus. So actually every Friday, usually Friday afternoons, I spend time speaking with at-risk youth. I donate and contribute to rehab centers. I got saved. My life was saved when I was 17 through a facility that I'm a big part of called Portage. So those are like the 3 areas. And then I have, I'm a father first and foremost and a husband.
Boys. Yeah. That's amazing. So, for your company, a lot of people seem like Hyros, these companies, a lot of people have these tech ideas.
I coach all of them. So Alex is actually a client.
Wow.
I mean, it's funny because in the internet marketing space, from Ryan Dice or Ryan Levesque, you name it, I've worked with them because, my background's in the Valley, Silicon Valley, entrepreneurship, tech, so a lot of these marketers need help on the product retention, customer success side of things. Even so actually Dean reached out to me. Graziosi reached out on mastermind.com and I flew down to Scottsdale to help them out, try to understand product marketing and product management and customer success. And they're actually clients in SaaS Academy. So,
wow. So you take them from idea to integration to systems to process.
So we actually work only with people that have product in market. So we don't do the idea generation, product creation phase. We only work with like people that have product that want to scale. So in their case, they obviously had an incredible audience and product they'd already built. It's more about trying to understand how to work backwards from the customer to build the right product that reduces churn or cancellations, and also figure out what's the packaging and pricing in the position to increase what's called expansion revenue through upsells and, selling other things, but having the software do that. I don't know if you've ever experienced, Eli, buying, HubSpot or Dropbox, or you buy this software and it starts off at $20 a month and all of a sudden it's $300 a month. We actually teach our clients how to do that in a way that their customers are happy about paying for it because it creates more value.
Okay. Yeah. So I have, my mind's just going crazy right now because the only real automation we do is email. Like we have just our email autoresponder go out. We're using go high level. We're using some of this
Yeah,
right now.
Sean's actually speaking at my event in a month. So it's fun because like if you know a software product, I'm only known in this little tiny niche market of SaaS founders. But yeah, high level is a great product.
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody here, these entrepreneurs listening, salespeople, you have to be able to in order to have a real business, it needs to run without you. And that requires software automation, obviously a team, human beings. But if you can scale it with software, that's where you can really begin to make some money using somebody else's or creating your own. And so when you see people that have these ideas for some kind of tech thing, what mistakes do they usually make? It's the charging more without letting people feel like they're getting value. What if somebody has an idea right now that's listening, what do they need to be clear on?
Yeah, I've literally helped probably 10,000 entrepreneurs at this point. And there's no exaggeration because I did, 2,000 calls on Clarity, and I've been in software world. Like literally my dad gets his teeth cleaned by his dentist. He has a software idea. I get a call from my dad's dentist. I mean, it's just par for course now in my world. And I put a lot of that stuff out on YouTube. But the three mistakes people make is, one, they don't allocate and constrain the financial resource they invest in building a software. So for example, they have a company, a coaching company, and they'll start a new software, and the software is just like this unlimited amount of money. I literally have a private VIP day coaching client because they have a very successful coaching business. They started a platform to support the coaching business, and 2 years later, it's $600K invested and no sign of it being its own thing, right? Because they didn't like financially constrain the investment, right? Like they didn't say, we're going to put 100K into this and that's it. And we need to get to break even on 100K, so that's the first thing. The second one is the product scope is too wide. So, like go high level, you see a ClickFunnels, you see any other email marketing technology. I mean, there's hundreds out there. And you want to build something better. So you spec out all these features, but the challenge is like, you need to figure out what's the one hook that makes your product different that nobody else does. And ideally like three very specific features to enable that value. And that's on the product side. Like we're not going to boil the ocean. We're going to do this one thing really well. And that's like Hyros is a great example of that, right? Yeah. Like Alex said, look, we need to help with offline attribution for paid acquisition. So we're going to focus on this one simple focus problem. We're not going to try to worry about all attribution. We're just going to work on that. And if we get success, then we can add other stuff, right? So sales message, another client of mine, Chris, they say, we want to just do text message. We want to do two-way text message at scale for sales teams, and they focus on real estate, So that's on the product side. And then the third is the team side, the people. So it's always the profit, the product, and the people. The people side is they try to do this with their existing team. Here's what happens, especially I see this often with friends of mine that have like development agencies or marketing agencies or whatever, is they have a development agency and they're like, okay, I'm doing this work for clients or big enterprises, and then we're going to go build our own software product. And they allocate maybe 2 team members to go work on that. But what happens is if the business over here grows, those team members get pulled off. Project stalls. They go do work. Then there's free, then they go back. And literally the thing can go on for 2 or 3 years where the opportunity in the market is actually passed. What they need to do is actually allocate one person dedicated full-time, give them 16 months and say, hey, we need to build this thing. These are the features. We're going to give you your salary plus 50K for contractors. It's got to get product in the market launch and some level of break even or profitability to make it work. So those are the 3 biggest mistakes that people make.
I remember, I listened to Alex Becker a bit, and I went through his program, Iron. Really, really great program. He was talking about how expensive it was to create that Hyros software. Is that something that people just don't account for, how expensive it's going to be?
It's always more expensive than I think people. But this is software in general. I always tell. When engineers give me estimates, I always double the price and double the timeline. Like you can guarantee that people are overly optimistic. They misunderstand the level of finesse. Like you build the software, it's like, can the person reset their password? No. Well, you got to build that feature. Can the person delete their account? Or like, it's all these little tiny things that can add up. But the truth is, and this is my framework that friends of mine, like Ryan Levesque would be a great example. I coached Ryan for a while, but he built a product called Bucket. And one of the strategies I teach is to essentially pre-sell the building of the software to an early adopter program, meaning that if you have a community, just like you would do a crowdfunding launch. I actually, I'll come back to that. I sit on the board of a company called Pila. They're a biopolymer company. And even at their scale, 60 million in revenue in the last 5 years, they launched a new product called Lomi, which is a composter, a biodegradable composter for their products that you put in and turns it into dirt. And they crowdfunded the launch of that to pre-sell and to create the market before they ever built the product and brought it to market. So they sold $20 million worth of a physical hardware off of, I think it was Indiegogo, the platform they used, to then go to their manufacturing and production side to build this stuff and ship, 4 months later. So even at scale, this is just a smart strategy to do, right? So a lot of people forget. I mean, think about the courses, the coaching. A lot of friends of mine that are in that space, they pre-launch sell and then every 2 weeks deliver. So when I sat down with Ryan to map out Bucket, that's the strategy. He created an inner circle program. He pre-sold enough licenses to raise the cash to build the first version of the product, then built the team off of that revenue. If you don't do that, then you don't have the natural constraints that breeds.
Amazing. Yeah, I've got some ideas, and I wrote it down here. But do you know Jared Yellen? He partnered with Grant Cardone.
Yeah, I've not met. So, who's Grant's VP of Sales?
Jared also.
Jared. So Jared asked if I have not met him, but I was helping Jared. He made an investment in a tech company recently. One of my thoughts. So, but I haven't met Jared yet.
I'll connect you guys.
Yeah.
He was my first interview on here. And I remember, I listened to the interview or the speech that you did with our buddy, Brian Mark at his event. And you talked about these vectors. I was hoping you could go into that a little bit, because it was like, I don't know if you remember that.
I remember speaking there, but explain if I use the word vector, not.
You were talking about Elon Musk. And
leadership.
Yes.
Leadership vectors. Yeah. So there in the world of like computing, there's this thing called a vector, and a vector is a direction and a magnitude order of force, right? Yeah. And most people don't realize this, but like a lot of images are vector images. You probably heard vector images. It's because every dot, every pixel has a color, kind of direction and a force, right? And that's how we create 3D images, et cetera. Getting a little nerdy, I'll back up from there.
Love it.
But vector leadership, I got this from my mentor, Dharmesh Shah from HubSpot, because he had actually met Elon at an event. And he asked Elon this question, like, how do you think about leadership at Tesla and SpaceX? And Elon's, super advanced, nerdy, first principles brain spits out this answer that on the surface, most people wouldn't have understood. But Dharmesh is a CTO, so he totally got it. And he wrote about it and he told me this story. But the concept is that if every person on your team is this vector, and a vector is a direction and a force, okay? If your goal is to go north, and half your team's focused north, the other team is focused south, right off the bat, you're zeroing out any ability to move the business forward, okay? And to the same degree, what I call a true believer, or the values alignment, or their motivation to support the business. If some people are a 5 or a 10, and even if you get everybody aligned, if people are 2s and 3s, if you can get them all to 8s and 9s, you're going to be able to produce more faster. So leadership is doing things that allow you to get the vectors pointing in the same direction, like doing tug of war. If half your team's pulling on the opposite side of the rope, then it's going to be way harder for you to move forward. And then the other one is the force they're pulling with, right? Or the magnitude order of that energy. And to me, that's what I think about leadership is you look at all your team members, if you have 100 people or 10 people, and you go, are these people really aligned? And if they're aligned, are they showing up at a 10 every day? And what can I do as a business in regards to comp and values and mission and vision to get them on that pace?
Yeah, that's interesting. And Tony's company, he's very mission focused, obviously. So there's that container that he creates for every interaction with the team. And, there's in companies, you'll often find like sales and marketing kind of compete with each other. There's often some bad blood there. And so you're saying there's like almost a daily KPI of the leader checking in to make sure that everybody is moving in the same direction.
It's literally the leader saying, like, if your business, for example, one of the companies that I'm involved in, their mission is to help people discover their heroic self, right? The question is
Brian Johnson?
No, it's not Brian Johnson. They actually have never shared this publicly. I tell you the name,
okay.
But the idea then is to ask them, how are we helping our customers become their heroic self? So it doesn't matter if it's marketing, sales, or customer success, right? The concierge, the coaches, it's like, there's no fight. Because see, what happens is in business, you can get to, 5 million, maybe 10. Honestly, at 10 is usually the ceiling. Once you get to 8 figures, the only way to lead teams of 100 plus people is through mission. Like it has to be driven through, values and culture. And the word cult comes from that. So like if people have never studied, religion and other incredible cultures to understand that they have artifacts, taxonomies, language, rituals, etc., that, some people think are hokey pokey, but the truth is without that, humans want that. Humans' default value, like need, is to belong. And it doesn't matter if it's in their community or in your company. But, I learned this stat a long time ago. If somebody joins your team and they don't make a friend within the first 2 months, then they're like 90% bounce. They're going to bounce within 9 months because they're just like, oh, I didn't come to the right place. I haven't made a friend. I don't feel like I belong. I don't, and it's such a subtle thing to say, hey, let's do a buddy system that when we hire somebody, we pair them up with somebody and they spend 3 months every 2 weeks meeting up on Zoom to just chat and connect. Right? Like that's not a hard process to implement to increase your retention.
Yeah. I imagine you've read the book True Believer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. That's where Russell Brunson got a lot of his stuff.
It's the way to do it. I mean, that's how you scale.
Amazing. So kind of let's back up a little bit. How did you get here? You've got an amazing story, just how you came up, getting in trouble and how did you go? So just kind of dig us in and your story better than I do. So I'll let you.
Well, I'll share, I'll keep it short-ish and then we can dive into whatever part you feel is most helpful. But, I grew up in a really challenging environment. My dad was, white collar worker, general manager at a machine shop. But for whatever reason, like when I was young, I just had issues, anger issues, emotional issues. I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11. I felt broken as a kid. In my neighborhood, I was like the bad kid and most of my neighborhood friends weren't allowed to play with me. And, it just got to a place where my mom was an alcoholic. So a lot of challenges at home, second oldest of 4. To when I was 11, 12 years old, I got taken out of my home, put into a crisis center because of my anger issues. Like I would just see red and it was dangerous for my family. And I ended up spending about 1.5 years in, originally a crisis center, got put into a group home, kicked out of foster care into a group home. And then eventually therapy, worked back with my family. But when I was 13, my parents got divorced and I discovered drugs and I become a hardcore drug addict at a very young age. And literally my life spiraled out of control to a point that ended up in jail when I was 15, got out, promised I would change my ways, lasted literally 24 hours, back into it. And a year after that, I found myself in a stolen car with a handgun in a backpack sitting next to me. And I made a commitment that if the cops caught me, I would just pull the gun out and let them take my life. And I was on the run, driving to a different province. I'm from Canada, East Coast Canada. And on that drive, I stopped to get gas. I was drunk and high and there was a routine roadblock. And, I took off and got into a high-speed chase with the police and ended up going way too fast into a neighborhood and tried to hide out in a garage and smashed in the side of the house and went for the gun.
Wow.
And as I was pulling on it, it got stuck. And the police opened the door and just grabbed me out of the car. I wasn't even wearing a seatbelt. I was all mangled and dragged me across the lawn and threw me in the back of the cop car. And I woke up sober the next day, really wondering what my life was going to look at.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to jail for 2 years, 5 years. I had some serious crimes that I was running from. And I ended up doing 6 months in a prison, adult prison, for the severity of my crimes. I was 17 at the time. They had like a special youth section. And then I got released to a rehab center called Portage that saved my life. I mean, I spent 11 months in rehab and therapy, working on my feelings and rebuilding the trust with my family and learning what made me tick and my anger issues and my emotional intelligence around who I was and my identity, my self-esteem. Wow. And it was at the end of that program, I was helping Rick, the maintenance guy, clean out one of the cabins. It was built on an old church camp, and they had this cabin there that nobody had ever been in because it was like storage. And in one of the rooms I was cleaning out, there was an old 486 computer and a yellow book on Java programming sitting right next to it. And I opened this book up, and I don't know. I just thought it would be like hexadecimal numbers and zeros and ones. It was computer programming. Never touched a computer, and it read like English. So I was like, oh, boot up the computer, follow chapter 1, and I got the computer to say hello world.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was funny is that like that moment made me believe that maybe there was something different about me, that in the rest of the world, I got me in trouble, but in this like world of computers, maybe that was my gift. Turns out it wasn't founded on any truth. I'm not a very good programmer. Now that I've hired 10X programmers, hired hundreds of them, but I did supplement my addiction for drugs with writing code. And I would literally, once I got a rehab, internet started as 97, 98, turned out to be kind of a big deal. And I would just code till 3, 4 in the morning, pass out, wake up and do more and just build stuff, build websites for my friends, build tools for my laptop, CD, MP3 burning stuff. That was the addiction that got replaced. And then the other thing was entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development program. And, I've continued that journey since then. Just anytime I feel stuck in my business, I just look in the mirror and I go, who do I need to become? Right. And I'm so grateful. My dad used to say growing up, if you could only find something you're passionate about that isn't illegal, I think you'd do okay. And when I discovered computers, I give him a lot of credit because not only did he move part where he lived in the city for me to go to a different school, so I had a chance to like different crowd and community and stuff, but he also gave me an unlimited budget to buy computer books at the local bookstore. And I think we spent like $3,000 in the first year just buying every book on HTML to you name the programming language. I studied it, to architecture, database design. I never went to university, and I've built several incredible software companies.
Amazing. And so, that's so great. You were there processing your emotions, learning, just about you. And then you found this new healthy addiction.
Yep.
Yeah. And you mentioned you had ADHD. Was it hard for you to focus, or just when you find something passionate, you can zone in?
So I've studied a lot of ADHD. Actually, 2 of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel are about ADHD. It turns out that people that have it actually have the ability to hyper-focus. The environment needs to be true, right? Like I can't hyper-focus about doing my taxes and accounting and financial reports, but I can hyper-focus around creating frameworks, creating software, building stuff, right? And allowing myself to create the rhythm in my life. Like for me, I don't manage time, I manage energy. I very strategically look at where my energy's at throughout the day. And I put different types of meetings and projects and things that I spend my focus on to optimize for that. I took Adderall and Ritalin for 20 years, pretty much till I was in my 30s. And then decided to get off of it and just went into a regimen of, not eating sugar, drinking lots of water, and working out every morning, as we talked about, actually the ritual, because that ritual is what allows me to be productive. And I don't think there's anything wrong with medication. Actually, I have one of my good friends that recently decided to go on Vyvanse, and he didn't like it because it didn't make him who he was, but his life was so challenging that I was like, dude, give yourself a chance to spend the next year or two with some help, like get some support through the medication so you can rebuild your life and build these habits. Because for you to try to do what I do when you're just not even there, it's not fair, right? Like you need to get your health on track. You need to get your life on track, your relationships. Like if the Vyvan allowed you to wake up and focus and get stuff done, do that for a year. Make a commitment. I got 12 months. I'm going to do it. It's going to be a thing, and then move on if you want to or not. It's up to you. I don't have any judgment either way, but just personally, I wanted to figure out how could I, and I had the means to do it. How could I create a life where I only do the things that light me up and create value for the world, and everything else is just literally buy back that time with people.
Amazing. You mentioned your morning routine, and I know we had talked about it. What is this morning routine?
So it changes all the time because I'm always trying to tweak it. Okay. So like the current one, but I'll give the one that most people should look at. And I give a lot of credit to Hal Elrod, who wrote the book, The Morning Miracle. Yeah. He's got a great framework for this. I also think Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. is a good one, but I think I definitely like Hal's better for a lot of people. I wake up at 4 a.m. now, so not even a 5 a.m. club, but I started with like 7, right? And then had kids, and I had these human alarm clocks. And, if you want to get anything meaningful done, definitely before the kids. Joke's on me though. They wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning now. Like literally my son Noah woke up at 4:35 this morning, and he passed me. I was reading. I was just like, dude, you got to go back to bed. He's like, I can't sleep. So,
what time do you go to bed?
8:45, 9 o'clock.
8:45. That's early. Yeah.
It's actually late late would be 9:30. I actually wear an Oura ring. So, my average, I think, is like 8:50. But it just means like last night, my friend had a birthday party, and they know if they want me to go, it has to start at 5:30. So birthday party is great. Went through some acts, then went out for dinner, and I was home by 8, and we were good to go. My wife's the same way, so it actually helps. But, to me, it's about like, so first thing, most people try to like hustle. To me, it's about what are you focused on? So I always start with my vivid vision of like, what do I want to accomplish in my life? So I wake up and I go through this document I created that just kind of allows me to visualize the life I want to create. And, so it's kind of part meditation. First, it's just like reading it to reset incantations, et cetera. But then it's to kind of meditate and visualize and like kind of see that life. And I love asking myself this question is, who needs my best work today? That's a great question that I start, especially if I'm doing creative work. It's who needs my most powerful work, my best work today, so that I can use that intention to create. Physicality, push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks. I just like, I got to get the blood moving, right? Then hydration, I drink one of these first thing, wake up in the morning, right? 75 hard, you can't put anything in it. But if I wasn't doing 75 hard, I'd put salt and some lemon in there because it really helps with the electrolytes and whatnot. Visualization, gratitude journaling. So 5-minute journal, which I have a ton of them. I think I'm sponsored by Alex and the team there. They just keep sending me boxes. So 5-minute journal, big fan of 5-minute journal. And what else do I do? I think that's it. There's like 6 things. It's just a quick checklist.
When do you
food? I actually fast now till about 8 o'clock in the morning. So I do about from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So I don't know what that's about 13 and a half, 14-hour fast. I like to move fasted. I actually do a lot of triathlon training now. That's why my morning routine has changed. It's just my life's changed, right? I'm training for a full Ironman in August. Like, 75 hard is actually kind of easy, in context of that. But, I don't eat anything until then. But when I do eat, it's always lean and mean green proteins. Like that's the people are like, what do you want for breakfast? What do you want for lean and mean protein? Like greens protein. I go to a restaurant, it's salad and chicken, like, dressing on the side. I don't even think about it. It's just, I don't want to make that decision. This morning I had a shake with some egg whites and some proteins and some greens, athletic greens and some Vega. If I'm making breakfast, it's just egg whites, avocados, vegetables. But every day, like Betty, our house manager, makes me some protein and some salad, and then dinner is the same thing. Try to switch it up.
Yeah, I probably met you about 10 years ago, and you look 10 years younger.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
No, it's just, it's the investment in the person. Like, I think you mentioned a second ago, like the 10Xing of your business. Like I was on a great call the other day. I have a group, Taki's group. Okay. So I'm one of his coaches in his the boardroom levels, his black belt and then boardroom. You actually coach in that program. On top of everything else you do. I do it because I love Taki. Okay. Like Taki can do no wrong in my world. He's my Yoda. If he asks me for a favor, I'm there. So he was like, hey, can you help out on this group? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And on the group, it was awesome because I don't know if you know Mike A, but Mike's on the call. So one of the other founders, entrepreneurs, said something like, hey, I'm stuck at 5 million. I've been doing 5 million. It's such a great conversation. I've been stuck at 5 million for 3 years. And Mike unmutes and he goes, well, first and foremost, your problem is your identity. It has nothing to do, like the guy was asking about a sales team. He goes, the problem is you've accepted yourself to be at 5 million and you're okay with that. And I was just like sitting back, like trying to, and then the guy goes like, hey, Mike, what the hell? And he's like, and then Mike like just gets into it. He goes, the truth is, dude, is you just don't have a big enough identity. You want a 10x your business, so you got to 20x yourself. Like you're okay being at 5 million. Why are you not at 50 million? Why are you not trying to serve 10,000 people? What are you doing, man? Are you waking up and you're just happy, all fat and fucking, making all this money? And I'm sitting there going, he's absolutely right. I mean, you and I definitely know identity is everything. So like, this whole methodology that when I was telling you the reason why I've taken my health and all that stuff so much more seriously is as I became a coach 5-6 years ago, I just wanted to show up more for my clients because it was a great forcing function. And because I do that, I invest more in myself and my coaching and my training and my rhythms and my routines. And I just know that for me to give more, I have to become more. It's the only way to do it, man. And Tony talks about this. I know I've heard you share about this. He says that like, people want to contribute and grow. And the only way you can contribute more is if you have more, you grow more. So it's like, I just think that's a beautiful place to get in life where it's like, I want to have more impact. The only way I can have more impact is I need to become more. So if I become more, I have more to give. And that cycle is just a beautiful cycle to be in.
Yeah. It's, I always tell people that I coach, like money's not a goal. It sounds like it is, but it's not. It's like, it's a means to an end. And if you're only focused on means and not the end, there's a different level of, it's like, and this is a Tonyism as well. He's like, you don't want pieces of paper with dead people on it or more zeros in your bank account. You want a feeling, and that could be certainty or safety, but that's not what's going to light you up. Like safety never makes us, lights us up, like makes us passionate. And if you have something you're working towards that actually has an impact on people, it's like, it's game over. That's a great reminder. And I saw Mike, CEO Warrior, and I saw him do his thing with the board break and all of that. He's got this beach ball. He's got some cool stuff. He's badass.
Mike is one of the most intense people and I love that kind of intensity I know he knows this because he's super smart, but I don't think people around him understand it enough that he is one of the rare people. Like in the world of coaching, he's up there in my perception with the Elon Musk type. He's got that weird quirkiness, and I've told him this. I actually had him speak at my group not too long ago. That makes him this mad scientist. I mean, very few people will have built and exited coaching companies to the level he did, multiple 8 figures. He's going to do it again. He'll probably get to 9 this time. Like it's very rarefied air that what he's accomplished in his life. And I think people that because I was that guy when I first met him, he actually like replied and came to one of my founders dinner. And I was like, who is this guy? He's kind of tattooed and into martial arts. And, and the more I got to know him, the more I realized his genius. And I'm just so grateful to have him in my corner. I mean, he's in my mastermind group. He's somebody I text with and I have a lot of admiration and appreciation for.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you've become this person and you have this mission to serve more. So it makes you want to become more. For influence, I do believe it's the process of transferring. And in a sales context, the 2 core emotions we talk about to transfer to another person, clarity and certainty. Curiosity, it's like there's an exchange of the ether, the quantum, these ideas, these emotions. Like, so you've become this a person, and you have this idea, this vision, and you've got all these skills and you have this experience. How do you see the process of transferring that to another human being? Could be in a sales context, could be somebody on your team, where it's like they get it. Like they get it in a way that compels them to action. That whether that's to buy something or to do the thing that you want them to do and follow through. Like, how do you see that process when you engage with somebody? It could be a sales call, a team meeting, like where they need to get it. What is the mindset that allows you to be effective in that context?
I mean, I'm sure your other guests and you have shared this with people, but to me, it's certainty.
Yeah.
Like, I really believe the concept of manifesting and creating in your life is two dimensions, right? It's the one, the clarity of the outcome. So out of 100%, how clear are you? And when people say, well, what does that mean? I go, describe your life today in detail. How many people in your team? Where do they live? Da, 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 da. Like every aspect, your office building, your revenue level, your profitability. To the degree that you have that level of clarity around your future goal, that's one dimension. So do you actually know what the heck that you're building and what that looks like, and to that degree, Vivid Vision style, if you want to read that book. And then the other one is belief in that. So to the degree that you have vision 100% and belief 100%, then you have certainty. So I learned a long time ago that if I'm ever struggling, I feel like I'm in the mud and I'm like, it's just hard and I'm just like out of it, I go back to those two things. I got to go back to, what is it I'm trying to create? Why am I trying to create it? And what does that look like when it's achieved? And then the question for me is, who will I be then? So success doesn't come as a byproduct of doing stuff. We have to become the person first, and then the doing happens, and then success comes after, right? The be, do, have loop, right? Versus the have, do, be. And so I'm always going, who do I have to be today to grow to hundreds of millions of dollars in the coaching business, or billions of dollars in my investment? Like that person, when I wake up, then what is that? Who is that? And how do I act today like that person so I can attract those resources? So when I'm trying to persuade somebody else, it doesn't matter if it's my sales team, my customer success team, my portfolio company, an investment, my banker, who cares? It's always 100% certainty on those two dimensions. I am more certain about where I'm going and that I will 100% achieve it than your lack of certainty that I may not do it. And that is what fascinates people, because most people never interact with folks like that. So before I jump on, I don't do sales calls anymore, but when I did, I mean, I was just so certain that they were going to enroll into what I had to give them, that there was no uncertainty about it. Yeah. And the questions were just there to help them understand their problems, to help them make the decision to join where I already knew they were going to end up. Right. And from that lens, it doesn't matter if I'm trying to coach somebody up into having people doing clearing conversations, which is a framework I teach my team around how to have conflict, like tough conversations around conflict amongst the team. And I know they're scared. I'm certain on the other end of that conversation that they will absolutely be happy and grateful that they had that conversation. So I'm just like speaking that into reality. And that's that's a muscle that you need to build. But if you build it, the power behind that is unstoppable. And it's not about dashboards and KPIs and metrics, although I'm a nerd on that stuff and I have some of the most powerful frameworks. All that is the activity behind first, hey, let's get clear where we're going and show up with certainty, a level of certainty that is unshakable. Like, it's just giving yourself permission to believe in something that is absolutely ridiculous for the normal world to believe. But you're okay with that because you didn't even put a timeline, right? So I don't even put timelines on stuff. I just speak to where I want to go. And what's funny is that I don't care if I get it or not. I'm excited about the process of becoming the person who will or could. And in that journey, the skill sets and the refinements that I need to be making. And I think that's the ROI. That's why everybody should do it. I mean, Tony talks about, and look, I've done a lot of Tony stuff, the whole like fulfillment versus achievement, right? Yeah. Like I'm successful. I know how to do that. That's science, right? But what does it mean to be fulfilled? That's why I don't like the word happy. Right? My kids, I don't care if my kids are happy or not. I want my kids to feel productive. I want my kids to feel fulfilled. I want my kids to feel like they're working towards something that's bigger than themselves for a purpose that's outside of themselves. If they're not, quote, happy in the moment, I don't care. Some of my most, what I call core memories are when I've done hard things, that there's no part of doing the hard thing where I was happy, right? Yeah. I'm not seeking that. I'm seeking feeling like contribution and growth, that my time here, as little as it could have had an impact on other people as it did, like so many people had on my life.
Now you have a huge vision. I'm always thinking of ways, and in sales interaction or team, it's like sometimes leaders have that big vision and they see it and they've got this certainty and you can feel it, But sometimes the people, even in Tony's company, people aren't on board or they're in their own way, or you have a team member, how do you get that person back enrolled in that vision? Because sometimes you see it really clearly, but it doesn't mean that the other person in your team or the prospect will see it. How are you able to enroll them in that? Because you've done it so well. And so this is a question I don't ask everybody, but for you, I'm sure that's happened where sometimes there was a disconnect in a sales process or a team member. Do you just fire them or say this person's not worth it? Or how do you re-engage and put this thought, this feeling inside of this other human being?
It's a great question. There's a lot there. So first off, if I have to fire somebody or somebody leaves, it's my fault. It means that I mishired them or I didn't create the environment for them to stay. So I always look at anytime I have to transition a member off my team as an opportunity to learn, 100% accountable. In regards to how do I make sure that there's alignment? Few beliefs I have. One is that my dreams and goals have to be so big that other people on my team's dreams sit inside of it. If my dreams aren't big enough for their crazy dreams to fit inside of it, then I need to grow my container, period, full stop. There's just no other way to do it. And then from that, when I interview people, I only do final interviews because my team recruits and we have a whole talent team. And one of the questions I ask them is to describe in 10 years, what does their perfect, ideal, dream big life look like? And then once I know that, I remember it for every person on my team. I don't know why, but I can just when I see somebody I haven't seen in 6 months and I'm like, oh, I remember yours. You want a bee farm. She's like, yeah, how'd you remember that? I asked this question to everybody. And then what I do is every time I talk to them or I'm communicating to the company at all hands, right? Because I have hundreds of people that work for me. I'm always kind of dropping those hints. I'll say something like, we're going to do this to have this impact. Like the work we do is for two parts. It's for the team and for our customers, but it starts with the customers. None of us have a place to come to work if our customers don't get results. So when somebody falls out of love with it, I always say here's what you want to do and what you're doing here is going to allow you to get there. And I connect the dots. You always got to connect the dots. Yeah. But more importantly, I go, let's talk about a customer. I don't care if it's support or finance or whatever. Who do you feel like you've helped impact as a customer lately? And a lot of them will go, what do you mean? I'm an accounts receivable. It's yeah, but you're reaching out to people that owe us money, that made commitments. Did you talk to them? Did you talk to them as a human being? Did you ask them about their life? What are you going through right now? Not ask them for the money, but actually be like, hey, Dan, what's going on in your world right now, man? I know we don't know each other, but I'm actually sincerely interested, right? And seek first to understand before you understand. And by connecting back to the mission of wanting to support 1 million entrepreneurs from not failing in software, because it's probably one of the hardest things to do. It's why the businesses are so lucrative, but it's one of the highest failure rates if you don't have proper mentorship and guidance. And I don't care if you're accounts receivable, every person on my team is seeing how we operate, and we operate based on the principles that I teach. So every person on my team doesn't even realize that they have something to contribute to every one of our clients. Right. So I'm always trying to connect the work they're doing to the client experience and the impact so that they can get closer to the customer. I think that a lot of times people fall out of alignment with the belief when they don't understand kind of the mission we're after and actually get to know the people on a human to human level. Here's an example of how to do that in a business is every person on your team should have 5 accounts in your company that they own. Okay, that means that those 5 accounts, they can email support, they can email VIP, but if they're just really frustrated and confused, they can email Mike, they can email Matt, and they're corporate sponsors. Every person on the team should have 5 corporate sponsors where they have a relationship with these 5 accounts. Wow. And I think that's just a really great way of getting people closer to the customer because it can feel transactional, and business is not transactional. And the moment it gets there, you start to see things flatline. Yeah. Right? We do not get out of bed to push numbers around in spreadsheets and create systems and processes. Those are things that are necessary evils to do things that feel fulfilling and hard and worthwhile, right? And it's not enough to just have a slide show up with wins from your customers. It's get those customers on your all hands to communicate and have your team ask them questions. Hey, when did you start working with us? 12 months ago. What's the thing that you heard from somebody that's had the biggest impact on your life? Oh, well, it was actually at this event. I met this guy, John, and he said this thing. And wow, so is that an event? Hey, Jasmine, good job on creating that event. Hey, hey, Megan, thanks for putting those 2 people at the same table. People sometimes are going through the motions in their work. They never have a chance to actually understand how it helps the customer. And to me, we'll do way more for other people than we'll do for ourselves. So that's why I always have to say, hey, we're at thousands of people right now we've helped. We want to help 1 million. There's a big mountain to climb, and I'm not going to stop. And I'd love for you to support me in doing that. If that's aligned with what you want to do. And if it's not, that's fine. But we can't have people that aren't on that march. Imagine we're climbing Everest and somebody halfway up Everest decides, I don't want to do this anymore. You're putting the whole freaking team at risk of dying because you decide to start dragging your feet. That's really not cool. And that's the way I've always explained it to my team, is that we're a high-performing team. We're going to try to do something that's never been done before. Elon Musk, we're going to go colonize Mars. We're going to help transform the world, transition the world from fossil fuels to renewable energy. I mean, he sets these missions that are so crazy that he probably won't achieve them in his lifetime, but he's okay with that because it's worthwhile cause.
Yeah.
There was a lot there, man. I don't know if that was helpful.
That was great. Yeah. The way that I explain it is values elicitation. What's important to you about, because a lot of times you have these company owners, even the salesperson, like, here's what we're up to. And it's misaligned with the person actually asking the question, why is this important to you? And it could be money or whatever, but they need to see the company and the work they do as a means to their end, like this process to be able to do something. And if we can link it to become more or put their kids through school or feel better, and they associate the company as the vehicle to get there. And if they help more people get what they want, they can get what they want. And so they show up different. So yeah, as the best man, is there anything that I want to be respectful of your time? Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
As it pertains to influence,
yep.
I mean, I think the identity one's the biggest one. The analogy that I love to share that I think I first, I don't even know. I think it might've been Gay Hendrickson's book, The Big Leap, where he talks about the thermostat. But the thermostat, like, what people need to understand, and what Mike A was trying to explain to this other person about identity, is everybody have highs and lows, tolerance levels, right? Like a thermostat has set a temperature. And if the room gets too hot, it cools it down. And if the window opens up and it cools down, it warms it up, right? And you see this in your bank accounts, your health, your relationships, all over the place. You have these internal thermostats set. And the game is to make your old high, right? So let's say it's $100,000 a month. It maybe once you get to 100, you slow down to 80. And then when you get to 60, you go, whoa, hey, I'm a 100,000 person identity. Boom, you go back to 100. And people don't realize they bounce around this $1 million a year mark, right? And what they got to do is they got to take the old high and make it the new low. They need to act at 100,000 the way they would act at 60,000 a month, or 10,000 a month at 6,000 a month. And that thermostat has to be reset. Right. And that to me is probably the most important part about influencing. Is what's crazy, Eli, and these people at the top of the spear, like tip of the spear, top of the pyramid people, it's actually pretty quiet. There's not a lot of people because most folks are not willing to reset their thermostats on that journey. And they get stuck in this peer group, in this kind of success level. But the higher you go, the less people are there. So it's actually pretty awesome, because the higher you go, the easier there is access to other people, because there's not a lot of people operating at that level. So how
did you reset your thermostat?
There's ways to do it all the time. But the easiest one is environment. So for example, environment, you could be the most positive and motivated person in the world, but if you're in a freezer, you're going to be frozen.
Yeah.
So the easiest way for me to reset your internal thermostat is to take you out of the freezer and put you in a sauna. Right. Yeah. So if you feel stuck, look around, man. It's really simple. I'm a Canadian, so it's weird for me to brag. Right. But the other day I realized every one of my friends have a gate. Every one of my friends. And it wasn't like a choice. I didn't go do you have a gate on your house? And they said yes or no. And then I said, you're my friend, you're not my friend. I didn't do that. I just kept trying to upgrade who I am and connect with people that are thinking about ideas and creating stuff and running really cool business. And I moved to this place called Kelowna, British Columbia, which is awesome. And I was driving around in my McLaren and I noticed that I have a notes file with all my friends' gate codes in this note file. It's kind of crazy, right? Yeah. And when your friends start having the private jets and then flying private's normal, what is your identity? Again, if that's what you want, you got to act today the way you would when you get those things. You can't want them first. It doesn't work that way. So to me, environment is the biggest one. I got 2 others, but I ain't giving those away today. Those
Right.
people want to find them. They can Google me on the internet, find me on YouTube. It's all up there.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Where can folks find out more about you on that note?
So danmartell.com, 2 L's of Martell. It's my website. Go there. I have a ton of resources. I have my YouTube channel, 500. I've published every Monday for the last 7 years. I haven't missed a Monday. My newsletter, and then Instagram. If you want to like connect with me, Dan Martell on Instagram, privately message me. My team monitors and stuff. But if, I work with at-risk youth. If anybody can get me in front of kids, grade 9 to 12, virtually, in person, if it's locally or I'm traveling around, I make some exception. That is the biggest way. If somebody wants to add value to my life, go do the heavy lifting to coordinate something to then reach out to me. Instagram and my team will pick it up. They know about this, but I spend every Friday on that kind of activity, and I would love more people to help me connect the last mile.
I know some people. So
I would love to help, Eli.
Yeah. We're doing some things. So that's beautiful, man. This has been a true honor. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time. Immensely valuable. So for everybody here, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully this was as valuable for you as it was for me. I've got a lot of notes and a lot of homework. So this was good. This has influenced me immensely. Thank you so much.
Talk soon. Cheers.
See you.